Thank you again, Amit. A good day to you, and thanks for speaking with me. Uh, what I would like to do to start off, Amit, is have you introduce yourself, and just for the listeners, a quick tidbit about Amit, which I don't know whether he will dive into or not in his introduction, but let me spoil his thunder if I may. Uh, Amit he used to dabble in theater during his college days and has uh, started rediscovering his passion again through the pandemic time. So I would say that it's worked uh, worked in some ways to have him rediscover his passion, as we say during these days. We all try to find some things to keep us going, and Amit has found that. So great, Amit. Over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Share your experiences.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning earlier, I think like most companies, I think this a year or so long working from home scenario has given us all an opportunity to rediscover and reimagine ourselves as well,
Right,
just like
right.
most companies are doing as well. So over 25 years in the HR industry, pretty much most of my professional career has been over with two companies. Um, I was a part of the startup team at Intel when Intel set up their operation in India way back in the mid 90s when the MNCs were kind of looking at India as a place to kind of start investing in. Help them kind of evolve in the 8 years that I was there from a sales and marketing organization to an R&D organization, and then joined NVIDIA when it was a fledgling company as well, and a small 2,000 people company with a lot of ambition to kind of establish a global footprint.
Mm-hmm.
And have been with them now for the past 15 years, 15 fruitful years. I currently manage the India region, which basically comprises of India and Southeast Asia.
Sure.
The largest engineering presence for NVIDIA outside of the US, close to around 3,000 direct employees, 1,500 contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much kind of manage the entire HR group for the region. And additionally, I also kind of play the role of what we call a site leader. And the way I
Sure.
can look at the site leaders are people who kind of are the cultural ambassadors and the fiduciary keepers
Mm-hmm.
for the operations. So I manage it for Bangalore, which is the largest site that we have in India.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, I think the last year or so has been transformational for us, like the rest of the world as well.
Right.
Like I said, we have reimagined, we have reinvented, we have actually gone back to our first principles and re-explored in terms of the things that we needed to do. So it's been
Mm-hmm.
a journey the last 1 year.
Sure. So that's amazing, Amit. And so, are you introducing some theatrical production stuff as part of your cultural
No,
changes?
I'm not going to. Well, we actually are doing that
You are.
in the company, and we actually kind of put in a program which was called NV Balance, and we are typically a very very kind of a serious tech kind of a company which is very very work focused, and we
Yep.
believe that people derive joy from work. But in this last 1 year, we've actually put together a set of programs that helps employee kind of showcase their talents, and we call it NV Balance. And it is amazing that there are so many hidden gems and lost talents that were there in the company that we were not even aware of.
Absolutely.
People who could mine, people who could paint, people who could, do just interesting stuff that was unknown to us
Right.
at this point. I mean, that's actually been a pretty successful initiative for us because I think that there is really the human side of the enterprise that has come to fore in the last 12
Right.
months, and it's amazing as to how leaders have become a lot more transparent and a
Mm-hmm.
lot more palpable as human beings,
Sure.
as against just people who are kind of setting direction and energizing people to kind of accomplish business outcomes. But it's
Right.
amazing to see the personal side of the leaders across the company as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of our biggest success stories actually was that we launched Ampere, which is our latest generation GPU, and our CEO actually launched it from his kitchen. So he was actually sitting in his kitchen at home, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where he did our biggest launch ever.
Wow.
And it was amazing as to how people were kind of looking at his kitchen, and employees had questions around, say, what spatula do you use, kind of stuff. So I think that connection has just got stronger in the last 12 months or so.
No, there are some of those kinds of positives as well that we can draw out from the last 12 months. How have your employees in the region that you govern? How have you seen your employees cope with it from a personal as well as the changes from a professional and workplace level?
I think the way I look at it, Suranjan, I think it happened in two phases. I think when it started off, there was an element of crisis that had kind of hit the organization and the employees.
Sure.
And people were kind of trying to figure out in terms of as to how do they kind of make sure that they continue to kind of deliver to the expectations. And I think there was a little bit of a heroism that was kind of coming in, right? Which is that people thought it's a crisis, they need to go above and beyond, and they were actually kind of getting to a stage where they were in a crash and burn mode.
Right.
And I think the way I look at it, that roughly around a quarter into it, people realized that this is not kind of going to go away, and it is not the time for going above and beyond, but it's about kind of making the adjustments that are needed to kind of acclimatize yourself to the new way of working. There were people who were burning out at the initial stages. There were infrastructure constraints they were dealing with. They were kind of trying to grapple with managing the personal crisis as well as their desire to kind of continue to find meaning in what they do from a professional perspective. But I think that they have kind of now got used to that new normal, and I think they've adjusted and adapted quite well. Obviously, as a company, we have kind of created that enabling environment as well. And there were a couple of things that we did that I thought that worked out very well in terms of helping employees to kind of cope with the new scenario. One, we told them that don't worry about the deliverables. Work can wait, right? Take care of yourselves and your family. That is the first priority that you have, right? And we kind of extended to the level that where we said that even our contingent workers and partners, we don't want them to kind of get impacted. So we took a decision which was basically that we're going to pay everybody right, at the level it is, and they don't need to be worried from a financial perspective as well, including our contractors and hourly labor. We said we're just going to continue to pay you. It doesn't matter whether you can come to work or not, whether it's janitorial staff, whether it is folks and all that. And I think that was well received.
I'm sure that would have been well received.
Yeah, because I think the employees of today have a very strong social conscience as well. They're not only looking at it in terms of what you are doing to them, but what you're doing to the larger ecosystem as well.
Absolutely.
Second thing that we did was that we actually kind of pulled in our increase cycle. So we normally do our salary increases in October, and we said that we just don't want you to be kind of worried from a financial perspective, and you want to take that insecurity out of your mind. So we actually kind of did probably the fastest, cleanest focal exercise in June. And we just kind of put increases in front of our people as well. Very well appreciated. The third thing was that very quickly we enabled them from an infrastructure perspective. There were ID packs that were kind of built in record time, and they were shipped to employees' homes, which means that they had all the infrastructure that needed for them to kind of get productive. We pretty quickly introduced a $400 subsidy for people to buy furniture from home. So that they could kind of create the right ergonomic environment.
Office environment, yeah.
Yeah, so I think all these, the hygiene factors that we kind of took care of gave people a lot of confidence. The other thing that we kind of did that worked well in terms of addressing some of the employee concerns was that we made our top leadership a lot more visible. So there was a unique thing that our CEO did, which is called virtual region visits, which is that in a region's time zone, we almost kind of did a virtual visit by the CEO. So which means that for 4 hours, you are in the Bay Area, so you know what those 4 hours can kind of look like from an India time zone perspective. The CEO was there, and it was as if he was on a visit to India. He was doing employee meetings, he was doing manager meetings, he was doing business reviews, and it was not only the CEO. The virtual visits actually had our entire leadership team on those visits as well, which has never happened before in the real world. So we had all our top execs.
It's impossible to get everybody together at the same time to visit one
and all of
place,
them,
right?
and we did it across the globe. And I think that was a great energizer for the folks. And they said that if the leadership can go out of the way to kind of reach out to us, right, and communicate to us that we are all in this together, that's a huge kind of a motivator for us.
Absolutely.
Our managers stepped up quite a bit as well, and they had to unlearn a lot of stuff, right? I mean, they were asked and they were chartered to kind of reach out to the employees and actually kind of work at them at an individual level to kind of understand as to what their personal scenarios were, what were the challenges that they were kind of grappling with. And it just kind of created that connect, that empathetic connect that honestly doesn't happen during normal times.
Right.
You're in the office, you're very focused, you want to kind of get stuff done.
Right.
You have very little whatever casual conversations and informal exchanges. And here the managers were actually kind of having very detailed conversation in terms of what was going on with employees at a personal level. So I think all these things kind of helped us create what I would call an environment of comfort, which I thought was very well received and well appreciated by the employees.
Sure. No, that is amazing to hear, because as they say, it's difficult times when the human side comes out, right? So I think the social contract that all of us have with each other, it shows up in these kind of times, and I think it did in all the cases that you talked about.
Okay.
From the perspective of NVIDIA, being a tech company, I'm sure you face the situations of needing to reskill, retrain, understand what works, what doesn't work from a talent perspective. How has that changed, if at all, for you?
Actually, it's not changed significantly for us, other than the fact that now we have a much larger universe to kind of work in. And it is actually a boundaryless world as far as talent is concerned. And that's, I think,
Absolutely.
a huge plus for us. Most technology companies, including ours, that are highly innovative and research focused, had the building blocks in terms of allowing employees to work from home.
Absolutely.
So I think the concept was not alien to us like it is in a lot of other companies. But what has changed dramatically is the way work is kind of getting done at this point in time, and the access or the unlimited access that we have to now talent across the world.
Right.
It is truly a boundless world. I was yesterday in a meeting with a bunch of new managers, and I had managers who were sitting in Visakhapatnam, who were sitting in Allahabad, and these are people who joined us in the last 4 months. And I was talking to them in terms of what our culture is all about, because clearly that's a big challenge that most of us have, is that as to how do you kind of make sure that your culture is experienced by the employees as they are operating in a remote kind of environment, especially the new hire. We've hired more people than we've ever done in the last 1 year. Even if I look from an India perspective, our hiring actually has gone up by close to around 30% or so from what we've done in the past, because we are in a very good space from a business perspective. We are getting into new areas. We are kind of expanding our skill set. A skill set, for instance, that we built over the last 1 year is on the networking space, because data centers is a big focus area for us. We actually did our biggest acquisition of a company called Mellanox, which has close to around 2,500 people spread about, headquartered in Israel, and we did it all virtually. It was unimaginable that you could kind of do an acquisition like that a year before. We did that completely offline. We just announced that we're going to be hopefully acquiring ARM. If that kind of comes through, that's a biggest investment as well.
That's a big one.
Look at the last 12 months, we've actually made more investments in newer areas than we've ever done before as well.
Right.
And I think we looked at it as an opportunity. We looked at this entire period as an opportunity, that this was the time that we could reimagine, re-explore, and actually reinvent a lot of the things that we were doing. Our hiring has gone virtual. For so many years, we were trying to kind of get technology adoption when it came to kind of recruiting people. Right. We had middling success, I would say. The last 12 months, I think we have made giant strides in terms of the way our recruiting happens. Our platforms have gone virtual, the adoption of technology and tools and predictive assessment tools has just kind of gone through the roof because I was having a discussion with my team sometime earlier this month, and we were kind of talking about that for any new initiative or anything that you're trying to kind of bring into any organization, change management is a big part of it, right?
Absolutely.
Which is getting people to adopt to these new technologies. And this 12 months, what we've learned is that that's the easiest part.
Right.
You no longer have the resistance. You no longer have the cynicism. You don't no longer have the fear of trying something new. And for instance, I mean, our entire college hiring was done virtual through using tools like HackerRanks and some of the other technologies that we're using. And we went into colleges that we would have never imagined that we would have gone.
It wouldn't have been feasible earlier, absolutely.
And it has actually broken down some deep-rooted construction behaviors that organizations have. That the best talent, for instance, only exists in the IIDs and the NIDs.
In the named colleges.
And we were able to kind of expand our reach. We were able to do it a lot more efficiently. That instead of going to the 5 IIDs and 10 NIDs, we could reach out to 120 colleges at the same time. And roughly half of the talent that we hired actually didn't come in from those colleges.
Right.
And it was a big paradigm shift for our managers as well. It said that let's not kind of just focus on the conventional ways of doing things, and let's kind of get a little more unconventional. And there is a goodness to it as well. So I think a lot of our paradigms have taken a shift in the last 10 months or so. And change management has never been easier. Our digital adoption, self-service models, most companies kind of struggle with it. We struggle with it because we have a very, very intimate, manager-centric, employee-centric kind of an approach, right? While that works very, very well at a interaction level, it becomes a big barrier for adoption of self-service and technology because they expect that somebody's going to do it for you. Right. And people who do it like to do it as well because they're saying, hey, I'm going to save time for our managers so that they can focus on more important things. Right. But it's almost like I was kind of thinking through like the technology transition that India went through. If you look at the way India kind of evolved from computers, we moved to mobile. We kind of missed the pager cycle that the US and some of the Western countries kind of went through. It's the same scenario. Our adoption of tools and technology has never been faster than what it has been in the last 10 months. And it's kind of refreshing. It is forcing us to change our models of engagement with our client groups. Right. As an example, we realize that there is, if you kind of look at a manager to HR, and I'm going to talk specifically about HR and not necessarily about the business as well. Right. 90% of our interaction with managers are agnostic of their location and their business groups. It's about, sharing information in terms of what's happening from a company program perspective, what the people agenda is. And we had this huge team of HR BPs that were kind of doing it, but they were essentially sharing the same information. We replaced it with something called a manager resource center, where we were able to get 500 managers together on a periodic basis. We could engage with them, we could communicate with them, and more importantly, we could listen to them. And we were hearing voices that normally I would never hear. You would hear it only through the BPs. I would not interact with the first line manager as much as I would want to. And here are these forums and platforms that are getting created, where you're hearing new voices, you're hearing different voices, and you're learning new things. And you're not talking to the same 20 guys who are, part of the leadership team that you are very, very comfortable, very, very familiar with, right? And you're really, really kind of trying to understand people's struggles and people's challenges and people's understanding and of who we are as a company. So that's been a huge kind of learning for us as well.
Sure. No, I get that. So how there is obviously a side to it where getting feedback, in-person feedback, the engagement in physical terms used to be kind of the norm earlier, right? How are you seeing that play out? You might have gone through a reviews and feedback cycle during this
Employee surveys are dead. Employee surveys are dead. Pulse surveys are the way to kind of go forward. We are now doing very, very quick, snappy pulse surveys every 2 months. And we are doing it on a thematic basis, right? In terms of trying to understand what is on top of people's minds. For instance, our first survey was in terms of how are you kind of looking at work from home, and what is your confidence level in terms of coming back to work, and what would make you more comfortable. And there were some interesting perspectives that kind of came in there, where a lot of people basically said that I don't mind kind of coming to work, but I'm really, really kind of concerned about the well-being of my family. And my second biggest concern is that whether my coworkers are going to adhere to the new working norms. So it's not about me. I'm pretty confident I'll be able to do whatever you're asking me to do or whatever the government was telling me. But I'm not too sure that my coworkers are going to be doing that. It was also very, very clear to us that people are saying that we want to kind of come back in phases. And perhaps the future is that 60% of our employees said that I don't see myself coming into work more than 2 to 3 days a week for a few hours and make it more focused and make it more thoughtful, as against just coming to work because I am expected to kind of come to work.
Right.
And then you started kind of looking and breaking it down, right? And then surprisingly it was the millennials and the younger employees who are more interested in coming back to work because they're just missing the social connection.
Right.
And they're saying that I want that social connection. I want to kind of come back to work because work or office is a big part of my life. That social interaction is a big part of life, and I'm feeling a little kind of compromised by the fact that I'm missing those connections. A lot of them said, and it was interesting that one guy actually gave a comment saying that, look, you're asking me whether I'm going to work from my home, which is somewhere in Ratlam or whatever it is. I don't, because when I've come to Bangalore or when I've come to Pune, I'm trying to embrace a lifestyle, right? And I do not want to kind of go back to my hometown because I have moved on from there.
Sure.
So I know a lot of companies are kind of talking about that people can work from anywhere. I don't think that in the future a lot of people are going to, at least in India, are going to be wanting to work from anywhere. I think they're going to be wanting to work from the location, may not be necessarily from office. So there's a lot more flexibility that's going to kind of come in there.
Right.
But I don't think that a lot of our employees, for instance, are going to necessarily start working from their hometowns.
Right.
Our second pulse survey was about collaboration and saying as to whether collaboration is actually kind of working, because that was the biggest feedback that we got. And there was some strong feedback that came in there saying that, keep the business running kind of stuff, things that I'm already doing, I'm able to do it really well. People are kind of helpful. I'm getting the information that I'm needing, but I'm missing. And it's not what people call the water cooler experience, but I'm missing what I call what they call the cafeteria experience. I'm missing that 1 hour. That 1 hour is an opportunity for me to kind of interact with my coworkers. It's a big platform for me to express my opinions, vent my frustrations, to bitch about my manager, right? And gain confidence that I'm not alone in it, right? What did Amit say in that meeting? What was he kind of thinking? Did it kind of make sense? And he said, and they say that we are missing that that part of our experience. So we do one-on-one conversations, but that informal, inorganic way of just kind of shooting the breeze is kind of missing. Ideation is becoming a challenge. So I can do what I'm supposed to do, but when it comes to new ideas, new projects, we're kind of struggling with that. So we're still trying to figure out as to what's the best way to kind of replicate that.
There are obviously virtual tools in place now to assist some of that brainstorming, whiteboarding, all of that.
Yeah. So we are looking at that.
That's obviously not the same as
limited progress, but I think people do want that. What I call shooting the breeze, kind of
together, seeing the other person's reactions, the body language, all of that makes a big part of how these things happen.
The third thing we also kind of observed was that people are kind of missing that informal coaching and mentoring. That thing that, hey, if I'm stuck with something, I just walk over to somebody's queue, I get it resolved, and I move on with my life. Today, I have to kind of make a deliberate effort to kind of set up a call, do a meeting, the kind of stuff. But it is interesting, right? The way I look at it, 3 major shifts that I have experienced is that the shift from employee experience that companies were focused on to kind of managing what I call the employee life experience now.
Right.
Understanding their challenges around parenting, understanding their challenges around geriatric care, understanding all their life challenges, and finding out ways to kind of help them address it. Mental wellness, psychological health in India. Our utilization of that has just kind of gone through the roof.
Must have gone through the roof, absolutely.
Initially in India, people are very, very skeptical. They're saying, hey, if I go to an employee assistance program, then there is something wrong with me. Now they're actually kind of looking at it as a very, very meaningful tool to kind of help them cope with their life scenarios.
Sure.
The definition of work-life balance has changed dramatically. It's no longer about work-life balance, it's about work-life integration. Traditionally, it was about giving flexibility to people to kind of work from home. Right. I think now people are looking at flexibility in terms of time. Right, which is that I'm not going to be working 9 to 6. Maybe I work 6 to 8, then I take my break, then I, kind of, and our pulse survey shows that people said, do not set up meetings, right, between 11 to 3. Now, if you look at a traditional office environment, typically the time before lunch and after lunch are the most productive hours from a meeting perspective. Okay, that's where most of our large group meetings happen. You do a meeting and then you go to lunch, or you come back from lunch and you do a meeting. And here people were saying, hey, this is the time that I need to feed my kids, I need to cook, I need to clean, I need to do this kind of stuff. I'm not at my best at this point in time. So you guys need to really actually look at in terms of how your meeting schedules kind of look like. We do want that 12 to 3 as our space in terms of trying to kind of deal with things that we were dealing at home. So shift your meetings completely. We had to kind of go and reconfigure all our meeting ecosystem, and a lot of our companies that are collaborative tend to be meeting heavy as well, right? And it was strengthening the reporting mechanism and eliminating a lot of our meetings. So I think that whole concept of work life is undergoing a shift. I think the other thing that has been a big learning for us, and I think at a macro level, that's going to have implications in the future as well, that I think countries, regions, states, cities are no longer going to be focused on attracting companies to come to them. And the emphasis is going to be in terms of attracting talent to come to them. There's always, we've been in Infosys, right? So, hey, we're going to set up a center in Mysore, right?
Absolutely,
let's look at as to what the talent availability in Mysore is and what the costs are and stuff like that. I think increasingly companies are not going to look at that. The companies are going to kind of look at how do I get the best artificial intelligence guys to kind of come and work out of Goa. I'm just kind of picking up Goa because that's kind of sounds sexy or whatever. And how do I kind of create the ecosystem where at an individual level a person feels comfortable working out of Goa, working out of Nagpur, working out of wherever. As I talk to our mid-level professionals, the biggest barrier for them to go to these cities is the absence of social infrastructure, education infrastructure. A lot of them are in big cities because they believe that their children get better schooling, they get better exposure in so-called big cities.
Right.
And I think that's going to change significantly because the talent is really going to kind of get attracted by what a location offers, and it's no longer about a company saying that I'm going to set up a big center in Mohali now because there are some tax incentives that are
incentives and all that.
There are a lot of colleges there and so on and so forth.
Right.
So that's a big change. I think managers are learning new skills as well, right? Empathy. Is mindfulness is something that is a new trait that they are being forced to kind of develop.
Right.
So suddenly the appetite for behavioral programs, and a lot of managers have this kind of a little bit of a trepidation when it comes to soft skills kind of training, has gone up tremendously. And people want it short, they want it personalized, and they want it contextual. Right. So I do believe that storytelling is going to be the most important skill that the leaders are going to need, and empathy is probably the biggest skill that the managers would have to learn in the future. And there are no easy answers for this. I think all of us are kind of learning as we go along.
Right.
But technology adoption, I think again is a given at this point in time, and we're probably going to see a lot quicker adoption of tools and technologies than we've ever done in the past. I think recruiting is a low-hanging fruit. That's already kind of accelerated. I think learning and development is going to kind of follow as well, because it's going to become hyper personalized, almost like the retail shopping experience kind of stuff. And we are going to be required to kind of change the way we kind of deliver training and the kind of training that we do, because people are not interested in kind of looking at general principles. They are looking at more contextual stuff.
Absolutely.
So I think the service providers would also have to kind of look at in terms of as to how do you kind of make your offerings a lot more customized, a lot more flexible, and a lot more relevant to your clients, as against having a big platform that you kind of tweak a little bit here and there, but you would have to kind of customize it a lot more
Right.
what we used to do in the past. So these are the big things that we are kind of seeing at this point in time.
Do you have a few more minutes? I know we are
Sure.
over the time. So I had a question for you. I think you referred to the advantages of the boundaryless workforce that you can access now. Within that, obviously, there's this whole gig workforce concept that is playing out. As well as in this boundaryless environment, it gives you a bigger opportunity to tap into talent across the NVIDIA environment, as well as your maybe the contingent workforce environment, unlocked by location, right? So how is that helping you, and also from a talent perspective, helping your talent in tap into roles, jobs which are in different parts of the world for them, right? Is that something which you've seen pick up?
It's a mixed bag. I'm a little worried as well, because it also means that a lot of as the talent goes global, right? There was going to be a higher propensity to kind of for US and European operations to kind of start hiring from India, right? And as the talent truly kind of, I mean, it's a reality that we would have to kind of contend with, and in some ways it's a challenge as well, because then we need to kind of up level our game in terms of making sure that the work that we do is equally meaningful and equally attractive as well. Because increasingly we see that there are a lot of companies in the US that have now started to hire people from India for US jobs.
Right. Yeah.
And in some cases they're paying them US salaries as well, or
fairly
US
decent,
salary equivalent. So that's something that we would have to kind of contend with. I think the other thing that companies have to be very, very careful about as we kind of look at this, open environment, is that there are still legal and compliance issues that companies have to kind of deal with as you get people to work from home as well. It's not that easy for me to kind of get somebody to work from Orissa. I mean, it looks great, but if it's using my hardware, it kicks in, for instance, some GST implications for us. How is personal taxation going to kind of work? I think it's more pronounced in the Western world, but increasingly in India. How do I kind of make sure that I'm compliant with the local laws? And in India, we do have a federal structure where each state has its own employment laws, for instance, right? The standing orders vary from state to state.
Same
How
as
do I
here
kind
in the
of stay
States,
compliant with that? But having said that, I think if I look at the talent behavior as well, the talent has become a lot more open as well. They are no longer attached to a particular city. I have hired more people in Delhi than in the last 1 year than I have done in the last 10 years or so, because it was very, very difficult for us to kind of move people from Delhi, for instance, to places like Pune or to places like Bangalore, and suddenly we are finding that people are kind of attracted by the quality of work, by the quality of organization that they're going to be kind of working in, and the location does not become a big factor as well.
Absolutely.
I think gig stuff, I think, is still probably going to take a little more time to pick up. I think it's still pretty nascent at this point in time from an India perspective. I think there is a little bit of a trepidation as well in terms of how do I kind of make sure that in the limited time the person is working for us, they're giving their 100% and kind of totally committed, because it's not about just the technical skills. It's about, do you buy into my story? Do you buy into my vision? Do you buy into my culture? Right, and it's not necessarily just a transactional arrangement. It says, hey, you've got some skill, you're going to kind of do it. But the bigger challenge I think for companies is the expansion of the skills that you require from your workforce. A couple of years back, people started talking about a full stack engineer. I think a full stack engineer is a reality now. You can no longer kind of just do one little thing, right, and keep doing it over and over again. You need to broaden your skill set and be able to kind of contribute to various aspects of product development. You have to be an architect. You have to be a software developer. You have to be able to QA as well. And I think the bigger trend right now in reskilling is going to be in terms of taking people from their specialized zones and converting them into full stack engineers. And I think that's the biggest challenge that most organizations would have. And therefore, putting in programs, bringing in technology that kind of understands as to what the skill map in the company is. And today, most companies do not have a very, very methodical process in terms of identifying as to where the talent lies in the company.
Right.
And what that talent is kind of capable of beyond what they already do is going to become a big, big imperative for organizations. And I think, and a lot of us are kind of struggling with it at this point in time.
And
There's
that's
no
an
clear
area
answer. I
where,
know your company has some solutions there.
yes,
I think it's a sweet spot at this point in time. It's not external looking. It's not about where the talent lies outside. It is
no, it's all
understand
internal.
as to where the talent lies within the company and how do you kind of utilize that. And with the barriers of location, with the barriers of time zones being removed, I think it's a huge opportunity. I think for Indian engineers, it's a sweet spot at this point in time. Indian engineers always complain that the geographical distance and the time zone differentials are always
against them, so to speak.
hindrances for them.
Right.
Today, I mean, you can work for a US manager, you can work for a US operation, provided you have the right kind of skill and you are willing to kind of reskill yourself and are displaying the initiative that is needed. And we see that. We see a lot more career interest, I won't say career mobility, of people applying for jobs across the company that they would have never applied for in the past, because you're saying, oh, the company is not going to send me to the US, or
right.
it's a new world for me. So I think that's a big imperative for organizations in terms of how to kind of identify as to what your skill landscape is and how do you kind of leverage the underutilized talent within the organization. And for that, I think creating those skill inventories, understanding as to where that skill lies and how best you can kind of leverage it and create opportunities for them to bring their best to work, I think is going to be a big imperative.
I think the potential to unlock the local suboptimal utilizations that used to happen is huge now, right?
It's a huge opportunity. So I'm more excited about that part, and then I am excited about saying, hey, gig workers, or this thing. I think this is probably an area that is the most underinvested areas from companies' perspective as well. And I think that would be the clarion call for most companies now, to kind of, hey, just understand your skill landscape and see as to how you can kind of maximize
it. And figure out how to enable the mobility desires of the employee as well as mobility objectives of the organization, right? To fill and utilize better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So, Amit, I know we've run over a little bit. I hope that was okay with you. But I think this has been awesome, Amit. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for giving me an opportunity, and wonderful chatting up with you.
No, this was outstanding. I know we went back and forth a little bit on finding the time and all of that, but I think this has been awesome. Appreciate your perspectives, Amit. They are refreshing. I think coming in from your lens of doing it with a US-based chip and high-tech company, it shows a lot of what's happening in the world, which we can take from. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and a pleasure.
And you have a good day. Yep.
You too. Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.